Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you.
God.
Eat shit. How's that? Eat shit. Eat shit. Eat shit.
Smug smile.
Definitely eat shit.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
You can't handle the truth!
We're back. Episode 43. Or next week, you'll probably be watching this on 3 other people's channel under a different name, different brand, but show still exists. I'm excited to have this panel on. It's a sports movie, so it's at least movies. I know sports gets people to like run the other direction because what the hell is that? I brought some fantastic. First of all, people sending lists. Some people need to know what a sports movie actually is. I got some really wild lists. I'm going to be honest with you. If I didn't respond to you, I was kind of upset with you because you don't know the concept. But I have Lucas Schildbach. Lucas, you're so dedicated to sports that you are drafting a fantasy baseball team as we speak for a league that is not even happening right now. So that's dedication. So do you think you're going to have the best list or the worst list tonight?
I mean, the good news is I already made the list, so like I'm not trying to make the list as I do the draft. The draft may be terrible. I definitely already spent $25 in the closer, which was a really bad move. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. It'll be fun anyway. Plus, Boston sports is literally in the middle of depression and about to jump off a bridge, so we'll see what happens.
Tampa Bay, cool, good move. Next we got Doug. Sometimes you don't know what the definition of a sports movie actually is. We've had that, or not sports movies, just the list in
movies
general. Yeah. So do you feel like that you will actually win this list, or are you going to have the worst list?
I definitely don't think I have the worst list. I think I have a pretty solid list, and I'm pretty happy with it. And I definitely know the definition of a sports movie. At least that will happen.
Well, we'll have a conversation at some point, I promise you. And the next we got Primetime, Oyama. The first person in this community I think I talked sports with for like 3 hours one night, and we yelled at each other about LeBron, how much I hate LeBron. And you're like, oh, you're one of these
don't watch
guys.
this. Michael, don't watch this part.
So do you think, one, thank you, he actually sent me a list of movies I've actually seen, so I appreciate that, most of them. So do you think you'll have the best list or the worst list tonight?
Well, Doug said he knows what a sports movie is. Does he know what a good sports movie is? More questionable. I did send Cody an original list that had a movie that may or may not have been a sport, according to him. But, we'll roll with it. I am representing the defending NHL champions. So, yeah, we'll see what happens.
And Jeff, anytime sports comes up on any topic, if it's 90s, 80s, or if it's a decade or a sport, Jeff's going to be in the comment section somewhere saying, put me in this, I'm ready. Do you think you'll have the best list tonight, or is it going to be the worst?
Well, narratives never die, so of course I had to be here tonight. So I think my list, whenever I do this, I always look, that's the Astros. That's a name you all say. I like to be sandwiched, in the middle somewhere. I don't look to be the best. I don't look to be the worst. I just look to be somewhere in the middle and just get by and not be like my precious Baltimore Ravens and have a disappointing postseason. So let's hope I have a great 10 through 4.
Yeah, at least your quarterback didn't start playing for the Buccaneers. So we'll leave it there. All right, so how the show works, everybody creates a top 10 list. They come in, we trade our 10 through 8, then 7 through 4, then 1 apiece when we get to the top. I judge everybody on their list. I don't really care if you're not trying to tell the community that you have the best list. I'm the judge here. I give everybody a grade. We have a combined list, and we all get to yell at each other about how the hell you put certain movies on your list. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to start with Lucas Schildbach, so give us your 10, 9, 8, and a brief synopsis on them.
All right, let's do this. Number 10, The Sandlot. Number 9, The Natural. I like the in the title, clearly. Number 8, Ford v. Ferrari. All right, so I can talk about all these. Wonderful. All right, Number 10, The Sandlot. Come on, it's the best kid sports movie by far. Who didn't watch this movie as a kid and be like, I want my life to be like The Sandlot? Because that's what I did. I was like, I would like to just play baseball and potentially chew tobacco and get on a roller coaster and throw up. And then, lose a ball to a dog and have to create some kind of ridiculous mechanical machine to try to get the ball back. Because who doesn't love that? The Natural, what can I say? Robert Redford is basically the perfect American male. And we really can't do better than that. And it's just like, it's baseball. Thank you, Jim. And then number 8, I recently watched this movie, and Ford v Ferrari is awesome. I love Christian Bale sitting in the car, talking to his engine as he drives around the track. It's fucking amazing. Christian Bale, cars. That's awesome. Yay, 10 through 8.
Yeah. So I really like your list to start off. Maybe because you put 2 baseball movies on there. I'm not saying I'm biased or anything, but those rank pretty high for me. Sandlot, yeah. I think when I think of kids' sports movie, this is the number one, the clear cut. And I think it's still like adults can go back and watch this and you still have that feeling of playing pickup games outside. Like that's the best. Natural. I love The Natural. I just saw it this year for the very first time actually, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's one of those things like I was surprised I never saw it before. It's one of those like should have been on my radar. I just never really watched it. So I enjoyed throughout. It's a fantastic baseball movie. Robert Redford is he gives an amazing performance in that movie, and I like the overall like feel of like coming into the club and like trying to get that belonging. That's something that is I think great when they do it right in sports movies. And your final one, Ford v Ferrari. So sports racing. I consider I've had somebody argue that racing is not a sport at one point.
Or you're on trial.
I was like, that's a little confusing, but yeah, that's not even close to the most overrated. I love this movie. I think the runtime in it, I was terrified when I saw the runtime. I was like, I really don't want to see driving for 2 hours and like 40 plus minutes. This movie flies by for me. I think Christian Bale and Matt Damon give amazing performances throughout. I'm not a big auto racing fan. I just am not. I kind of gravitated, and it put a subject matter that I don't watch often, but made me care about it and look actually stuff up about the event that they race. So yeah, and Bar, you're an idiot. That's why you're not on this list. We're going. I forgot what order. I think Jeff, give us your 10, 9, 8.
All right, so number 10, we're gonna go a little unconventional. It's about sports. We're gonna go Icarus. Okay, didn't figure it. Number 9, we're gonna go traditional, Field of Dreams. And number 8, we have Creed.
Yikes.
Okay.
Yikes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so number 10, Icarus. This was kind of like the unconventional pick. This isn't necessarily a sports movie, but it talks about a very serious thing within sports realm, and that is doping and using drugs. It explores a very interesting topic, and it makes for a very gripping and interesting documentary. And the minute you watch it, it starts off in one way, and then as the film progresses, it goes in a totally different direction. And it just, you find yourself captivated by it, that you just want to see what continues going on. I highly recommend it. Even if you have Netflix, definitely give this a watch. Number 9, then we got Field of Dreams. I mean, this is just a nice feel-good father-son movie. I love, the relationship with Kevin Costner and his family and everybody he meets. You just feel good about this movie. This feels like the most Frank Capra style movie from like the 90s. This feels like it has like a magic to it that I think that can't be captured by today. I love the performances. I think James Earl Jones gives a great one, and then you have the best final performance of what was his name? Burt Lancaster. That was his final role, who did great as well. So Field of Dreams, I think, is fantastic. And then you
can't say anything when you're crazy. Okay, so yeah, Icarus I haven't seen. I looked it up. Normally I try to watch everybody's try to find their top ones and watch them. I didn't get a chance to see this. I read the synopsis. I'm going to check it out. I just have not watched it, but it's on Netflix, so it's readily available for me. So I will be watching that this year at some point. This is I'm a little bit on the outskirts of this. I don't like Field of Dreams as much as most people. I think Field of Dreams is okay. It's just everybody says it's the best baseball movie, and I couldn't be more wrong. It's not the best one about the players involved in the scandal. We'll get to that later in my eyes, but so yeah, I think it's Paul just dropped out.
Bye, Paul.
We said Field of Dreams wasn't great and he left. But I don't think it's a bad movie. It's still a fun movie. I honestly don't like Kevin Costner as much as most people, I think. It's like he was fine. James Earl Jones is, of course, great in this movie. But yeah, not my favorite. And we'll talk about Creed later. Paul was supposed to go now, but he has apparently left the show.
Nope, he's back.
He's back.
He's back. Oh, got to make your own entrance. I like it.
Die.
You're 10-9-8.
All right, so my number 10 is Remember the Titans.
Yikes.
My number. God damn it. Oh.
Thank you, Hawaii.
Maybe leave the stream and come back. Maybe we might go to
Hello?
Doug. Hello. I feel like I'm in an old Verizon commercial. I can hear you now. Can you hear me? Okay, I'm going to make the announcement. Hopefully you can hear me. Doug, take us through your 10 through 9.
I feel like I'm talking to a robot.
Yeah, we're talking to a robot right now. I promise you that. Anybody is Oyama has turned robotic. But go ahead, Doug. Tell us what the best sports movies of all time are.
My number 10 is The Wrestler. My number 9 is Fighting with My Family. And my number 8 is Creed.
Let me just look real quick. Make sure Paul didn't have The Wrestler. He does not. So, okay. Oh, go ahead.
All right. The Wrestler, to me, is probably one of Mickey Rourke's best performances in his career. This shows you what aging wrestlers go through that aren't like in the WWE or in like any mainstay of wrestling, and it shows you how rough they push themselves. I enjoy the performances by every actor in this movie. I think Darren Aronofsky's this is probably my second favorite film of his. I think it's an amazing portrayal of what wrestlers put their bodies through time in and time out. Then my number 9 is Fighting with My Family. I think this movie was incredible for what it tried to do, and showed you the story of a female wrestler entering the league. A lot of people look at me, but I think Florence Pugh, 2019 was her year. She put in an amazing performance. She put in the actual stunt work in this movie. I think what it shows you behind the scenes of what WWE goes through it's incredible. I haven't been a fan of the WWE for a real long time, since I was probably like 12. And this kind of made me want to kind of research more people and find out more about the people. And I watched the documentary, and I thought it was really good. I thought the documentary was really good, and I think this movie is fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And then we don't talk about Creed.
Yeah, so 9 Wrestler. So here's a classic conversation that came up a few times today. Is pro wrestling a sport? It's sports entertainment. Is it sports? There's a huge bunch of no's. I allowed it because you can defend it on your list, and that's fine. I think there's still physical, I think it counts more of a sport than chess, but we won't have to go into that moment again. The Wrestler is a great movie. I think The Wrestler is great. It's just not where it would be in my top, because pro wrestling is on that little bit of like my son watches it and I'm like, ugh. And it's like bad acting mixed with that stuff, but it shows a real probably back then or when that story is depicted of real stuff that went on. So it's a really great movie. I have no problem with that. The problem I have with it is the next part. You have The Wrestler at 10, and then you have Fighting with My Family at 9, which is arguably the most confusing flip of the world. Florence Pugh is Lucas Schildbach's love of his life. He loves Florence Pugh, and I think Florence Pugh is one of the best. Every movie, even Midsummer, which I couldn't stand. Overall, I think her performance was something I was just like, what?
I wanted to lock me in a bear costume.
But I literally couldn't like turn away from that movie. I watched the entire thing. I could have turned it off, but I think her performance is amazing. I also think it's good in this movie, but I think this movie is like, I was going to say, sorry if I'm going to be rude. This is the point of the show. I feel like this is like if WWE made a Christian film. Like, it's like these like cheesy, over the top, like, oh my God, can you believe this happened? Oh no! Like, it was so like hokey the entire time. Like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. Oh, her brother didn't make it. I'm so shocked. Like all these things, and like it never like added up to anything more than a great performance from Florence Pugh and like cut actors and actors the rest of the way that just phoned it in for whatever reason. Like, I think The Rock was terrible in it. I think it's a fine family film, but sports movie of all time, I think that is insane. Especially that just came out last year. Like, whew. Okay, so we're going to go to Paul while we still have internet connection with Paul. 10-9-8.
My 10, I assume, got Yikes, which is Remember the Titans. My number 9 is White Men Can't Jump.
And what's your 8?
And my number 8 is Creed. Which,
Yikes. Everybody had Creed at 8, and then some people were like, nah. Okay, so tell us White Men Can't Jump.
I rewatched White Men Can't Jump, and this is just one of the most truly entertaining sports movies out there. I love the interplay between Billy and Sydney. I just love the swagger that Wesley Snipes has in this movie. So entertaining. You can't take your eyes off him. I love the Yo Mama fights that they have. It's like all the silly little stuff that maybe doesn't necessarily fit together with the movie, but I think just makes it such an engaging watch. And it's something that I can revisit over and over and over again. I just love the characters. I love the world. I think I really like Rosie Perez too in this, but I think mostly it's just the dynamic between those two and how entertaining the rest of the movie is. Love this movie.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it probably wouldn't be my top 10 movies, but it would literally be in the conversation of just entertaining like sports movies, because like sports comedy is one of those things that I rank pretty high. Like if you can make me laugh and tell an engaging sports story, like it's hand in hand. And I think White Man Can't Jump is one of those. And 9 have no problem. And we'll talk about the rest later. So we're back to Lucas. You're going to go one at a time now. So 7. What's your 7?
All right, let me see.
And now everybody gets to talk. So if you have a problem with someone's list, let them have it. It's a great time.
My number 7 is The Fighter.
I got that in the same spot.
Same spot. Okay.
Fuck off, Paul.
Okay.
What?
Well, okay. One person.
Go ahead.
One person is contractually obligated to put The Fighter on the list. So, Masshole, take it away, and then we'll go to
the pride of Low, motherfuckers. You cannot not make a list without putting Irish Mickey Ward, the pride of Lowell, Massachusetts, on this list. Now, you could talk about a lot of things in this movie, but I'm going to talk about the portrayal of his sisters, which is the most perfect presentation of the annoying, loud Massachusetts women that exist in this world. It's so good. And they spend an entire movie calling somebody a slut by calling her an MTV girl, which is the weirdest euphemism I've ever heard. I love this movie. I love Wahlberg getting to play it's not entirely not Wahlberg, but it is more of a character that he plays. I think Vail is fantastic. Melissa Leo as this weird controlling mom is great. I love the fact that they had Mickey Ward's actual trainer play his trainer in the movie. I think that's really cool. And I just think it has some really good boxing scenes. I love the fight versus it's Arturo Sanchez, I think, where he gets beat up for 9 rounds and then it's the one body blow. I think it's a great boxing sequence. And then he goes to UK to fight for the last fight. I love this movie. Really good boxing film. So, had to have it on the list.
Doug.
Yeah, no, everything that Lucas said, I 100% agree. Christian Bale's performance in this movie is chef's kiss. It's perfect. He literally embodied Dickie in this movie. And that's coming from the documentary that you've seen. I'm sure everybody's seen. It's one of probably my favorite endings to a sports film. I think it's perfect with him, getting the welterweight title and pulling it out. And I agree. I think Mark Wahlberg isn't playing Mark Wahlberg. He's playing a character, and he's playing a real person. I think he took some of the inspirations from the real life and kind of really put it into a well-rounded performance.
As my uncle once told me, I'm pretty sure the flyer that read in Boston was "Send me the most Boston pride women in Boston," and all these women showed up. The most haggard, angry, just typical Boston women showed up, and he's like, "Yep, ran into those many times at the deli." Like, that's literally who shows up, and it's fantastic. If he didn't bring it up, I was 100% going to bring it up. It's literally the one part of the movie that I literally laugh uncontrollably at. I think this movie's great. I don't have any problem with this movie whatsoever. If the argument is that Wahlberg plays himself, well, fine. Vail is steals every scene he's in this movie. I think the overall boxing is great in this movie. I think it's one of Vail's best performances. And it's so rewatchable for me. I enjoy this movie throughout. So Jeff and Paul was very upset that you had this on the list. So I'll wait for you. Jeff, why didn't you have the fight?
I mean, I liked The Fighter, but yeah, essentially what Scully said. It's a good movie. I wouldn't consider it the best sports movie. I think in this, though, the performances outweigh the whole of it. So it's Vail is fantastic in this movie. I think Wahlberg and Melissa Leo gives a very underrated performance. I just couldn't put it enough to put it in top 10. If this was a top 50, for sure I'd put it in. But I like the movie.
Yeah, I remember when David O. Russell was good. 2004 was a great year. And since then, he has not been good. Bale's really good and Amy Adams is good. I don't see how Melissa Leo is underrated when she won the Oscar for this performance.
No, it's not.
Yeah, exactly.
It's overshadowed by Bale more so.
I think Amy Adams is way better than Melissa Leo in this movie. I think her and Bale are really strong. The rest of the movie doesn't work. I think Mark Wahlberg's not playing himself, and that's why he's not good, because he's not a particularly good actor. That's sorry to say that, but that's my truth, and I'm speaking it. And I think this movie is decent, mostly carried by Bale. And I'm a big, probably the biggest crack advocate on the panel, but just not my cup of tea. This movie.
Yeah. Okay. Go to your 6, Lucas. You're muted or something.
Yeah, release that. Sorry, trying to do 4 things at once. My number 6 is the documentary Hoop Dreams from the 90s.
Yikes.
Yeah, expected this.
Yeah, it's the one that when I came with the topic, I was like, this will be on the list. But, all right, what's your 5?
All right, my number 5 is Moneyball. So
yikes.
Yep, there we go.
And your 4?
All right, my 4 is Remember the Titans, which was the yikes from earlier.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay, we won't talk to you anymore. We'll come back to you. All right,
see you later,
we're going Jeff. What's your 7?
That is the real question. Yes, is Lucas wearing pants right now? Number 7, I have Moneyball, which was yikes. Yeah. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Number 6, we're gonna stick in the same sport. We're gonna go A League of Their Own. Okay, interesting. I really enjoy this movie a lot because it's one of those good different shifts in tone. Everybody associates baseball male only. This gives a good look into a piece of history, and it gives you a different perspective too. And what I love with this movie is this was the movie that made Tom Hanks made him Tom Hanks. This was kind of the yeah, you're good. We like you a lot now more. I love the dynamics that you have in this movie. It knows when to be funny. It knows when to be tender and sincere. I still think the most uncomfortable scene from this movie is when the telegram comes in for telling either Dottie or Betty that their husband's dead. And it's just, you feel it. And it's just one of the most uncomfortable things possible because you don't want to look like an asshole to the next person there, trying not to be like, oh, thank God my husband's not dead. It's so heartfelt. It's definitely good, and I always get choked up, especially as a father now. The Marla Hooch, her dad, just wanting her to chase after her dreams. That's all a good dad wants for their kid. So I think A League of Their Own definitely needs to be mentioned.
So no one else had it. Yeah, I love this movie. I enjoy every bit of it. It's fallen a little bit over the years the more I watch it. But I think, I can literally say the performances are great and the story is good. It just tells a different story, and it's about baseball, so it ties it close to me because just how baseball history is. I think it's a very cool story. Weird casting choices in this movie. I've always said that there are some characters that I'm still just like
Rosie,
Madonna. I'm like, what the?
Madonna was actually kind of good though, and I got
kind of, but like it's such a weird choice. Like it's like the casting directors like, you need a baseball movie with females. How am I going to sell this? Rosie O'Donnell and Madonna. Go grab them. Like it's just that always is weird for me. But I think the story is really good, and there are a lot of heartfelt moments, and I think Hanks is amazing in this. You three didn't have it clearly. Why?
Well, I'm glad that Jeff doesn't think that Big exists, because apparently Tom Hanks was not a thing until this movie. No, I mean, this movie's fun, and I think that Lori Petty and Gina Davis are great. Just for me, it's never been one that I've particularly connected to in any meaningful way. I guess that's really the only thing for me. And as far as Madonna sports movies, Vision Quest over this. Hot take.
I mean, go ahead. You go ahead.
I really enjoy this movie. I just find myself watching it less and less. I used to watch when I was a kid, and I used to pretend that I was the little kid running around because I was a little bit of a douchebag. But no, it was always funny. You find yourself connecting with characters, and I was the douchebag little kid. But no, I just find myself watching it less and less.
I mean, for me, it's just like, it's not a bad movie, but it's not particularly amazing either. I know several documentaries, Jim. I can suggest them to you. It's just like it's a 3.5 out of 5 star movie for me. And honestly, my biggest disappointment is you take this opportunity to talk about this really small pocket in baseball history, and you make a movie where none of the characters are real, and like you're not talking about the actual thing, like you're only using it as a framing device. So I kind of wish they'd done a little bit more with the story, because I think it is really interesting, but it's like if you made a Negro League movie and you just like made up characters for it.
That's fair.
But what pose is she doing in the magazine? At Dom Rizzi. Anyway, go ahead.
Ouch. Okay. We're gonna go on to your number 5.
Number 5, you have the hockey guy on here. You got to have a hockey movie, and you got to go with the best hockey movie, the best in American sports history. Do you believe in miracles? You should, because it's a miracle.
Yikes.
That's a good boy. All right, so we go to number 4. Number 4. My little screen name on the bottom's not there, so we're gonna pull a little spider 2 wide banana in the words of Mr. John Gruden. We're gonna go into some football territory. We're gonna go with the best from Odessa, Texas, the Permian Tigers, Friday Night Lights. Okay. Yeah, Friday Night Lights, this is like you could have like your high school football movies and have them be super cheesy a la Varsity Blues, or you could have something that digs a little deeper and have Varsity Blues is good cheese, but we're talking good movies right now. So Friday Night Lights, though, to me is I love the dynamics in the movie of like seeing the relationship of trying to be this symbol for the state and your town, and trying to balance that out with just trying to be a high schooler. Like they captured the dynamic really well. I love probably one of the more underrated performances, and no, it's not Melissa Leo, everybody in the chat. It's actually Tim McGraw, surprisingly enough, in this movie. He gives a very interesting performance in this movie. I love the whole dynamic between the father-son relationship and just wanting to chase the glory days. And I love just seeing the emotional weight on these people, seeing Derek Luke, Booby Miles, justice for Booby. I wanted him to succeed, and you felt him at the end when like he was trying to do good for his uncle. There's so much good in the movie. I think it's very enjoyable, and the drama works really well. Definitely one of the best football movies there is.
I want a fucking high school sports movie. I'm putting on Varsity Blues, you disrespectful bastard.
I like Varsity Blues. I do like Varsity
You can
Blues.
say cheese all you want, but that squad.
Cheese is not the most important dairy product in that movie. That's all.
I get what you're saying.
Hey man, have you never watched a movie where a man eats pancakes, peanut butter, and maple syrup while driving the car? Life is good.
Friday Night Lights does not have Billy Bob threatening to rip off the coach's arms and beat him to death with them. Okay, Yes, Friday Night Lights is a fantastic movie. I will not say it's a bad movie. I actually do like it. It's just not as high in the high school sports movies for me, high school football movies. Like, I grew up on Varsity Blues, so like, and that described a lot of my high school. So that says a lot. So I enjoy that movie. I also enjoy the movie we haven't talked about yet. So like, the list you can put so many high school sports kind of movies on there and make it. This is one I probably would cut, but I can respect it being on there because of the quality of movie. It's probably a better overall movie than Varsity, but it doesn't have Moxon. So, anybody else on Friday Night Lights? Why this did not make your list?
I saw your comment, Paul. No whipped cream bikini in this one.
The TV show is probably like my second favorite TV show of all time, and it's just a little tough to really measure those against each other. I have a lot of nostalgia for this, and I do love Derek Luke and Garrett Hedlund, especially in this movie. I think those two are really great. I don't love Tim McGraw actually, although this is the better Tim McGraw sports movie. I'll say that much.
No.
But I do think it's a really good movie. It's really fun, but it's not one that I necessarily love as much as these other ones. So,
Koho, have you figured out how to kick people out of the YouTube chat? Because I'd really like Bar to be removed. Can you give him a timeout? Like that comment? Yeah. Thank you.
He's blocked for 5 minutes.
Underrated Tim McGraw. Get out of here. Okay. Anybody else on this movie?
I love the movie too, but I again, just like Paul, Friday Night Lights movie is like, or the TV series is like one of my favorite TV series of all time. Texas Forever Street. So I always go to that when I think of Friday Night Lights.
I have a simple answer for why it's not on my list. It's one of the few like major sports movies I haven't seen. So that was just an omission there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's a little surprising, but okay.
I'm actually kind of,
okay, Malcolm, take it easy.
Hey, you're walking a thin line.
You're about to get a 5-minute penalty too.
I'll get a dislike soon, anyways. It's fine. What number? Okay, so we're moving on. We're going Paul.
My 7.
Because we're gonna go back.
Yeah. I'm going also with a football movie, but one I don't think that other people have. My number 7 is Heaven Can Wait. This is Warren Beatty's directorial debut. And I just think it's hilarious, but it's also got a lot of heart. And I really, really love the way that it ends, particularly if you haven't seen it. Would highly, highly recommend this. It's basically about a quarterback who gets in a car crash and dies. Then he gets put in another body and he tries to make it back onto the Los Angeles Rams. It's really, again, there's a great romance at the center of it. It's got like a lot of different elements going on, but I think it's a super satisfying and awesome sports story that I would recommend to anybody.
You bitch. Okay. Thanks for adding to the view count. I hope you're on a 7 browser. So I'm just seeing like the images on IMDb scroll through this movie. I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna be honest with you. He's standing, looks like at the pearly gates, and looks like he's about to go down to play football again. It seems like somebody's like that played football and got injured and wrote this story and put it out there. What you're describing, not a bad idea. I'm gonna check it out, but I have not seen this one. Has anybody else seen this movie?
I've seen it.
Okay, then why didn't it make your list?
I didn't think it was a top 10 worthy movie. I like the movie, but not enough to put it top 10. I can respect it though. That's all I got to say about that.
Charles Grodin in this movie is fucking hilarious, by the way. It's so funny.
See, I'm going to send a vote to Cody that I looked this up and I read the synopsis, and now I really want to see this movie because it sounds batshit insane.
See, Jeff, you got to know, Paul doesn't play this game like normal. He plays this game, pick movies that I haven't seen, and then I can't give him crap on the movies that he would pick. So he gets a pass.
I'm just trying to educate the masses.
Yeah. Okay, so can
the masses could need educated.
So my number 6 is another movie I rewatched for this, and a movie I love dearly in my favorite sport, and that's Spike Lee's He Got Game. This is, I think, one of the great Denzel performances that goes underlooked, I think. The gravitas of the scene, especially on the pier when he's talking to his son, is so beautiful. The game they play of one-on-one at the end, and also like the actual ending, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it, but is beautiful and sort of takes a left turn, but I love the way that it resolves itself. Ray Allen is like, as a real NBA player, is like one of the believable sports stars we've ever seen in a movie. Like when you see him in these scenes, you can clearly tell he's capable of actually doing the things that they talk about. I love all the touches that it's like about sort of what an athlete's life is like beyond just the sport, a college athlete, but he's being recruited and all these women that are throwing themselves at him and he's got to juggle all these different things at once. I think it looks at the life of a student athlete in a more full way than a lot of movies give it credit for. It's also a great Rick Fox performance. Really entertained by that. But yeah, love He Got Game. Love Spike Lee. Love Denzel.
Denzel's a hack. No. Yeah, you're 100% correct. I think this is one of his most underrated ones that go unlooked when they think of Denzel's. I think what you described is the perfect amount in this movie, and that Ray Allen puts the performance he does in this movie when he doesn't have any acting really experience before that. So no, I love He Got Game. That's a good one on your list. It's right above the guy that returns back to Earth to play football again. So, I mean, I don't know where this list is going, but it's going to get fucking weird. You guys, why? This is a little bit of. Have you not seen this movie, or do you just want to get a bad letter grade on?
So, it was my 11. It was really
the classic line on the show, the most popular line on the show.
Legitimately my 11, and I cut it. I was talking to you when I did it.
It is the most. It's the one. Get on. It was 11. It's 11. It was right there.
Everybody has 12 11s, and
Doug has no excuse because fighting with my family's on there. So if it's your 11, then you made a bad mistake.
Well,
my introduction to this movie was the Celtics radio broadcaster Cedric Maxwell used to call him Jesus Shuttlesworth after he would make 3-pointers for the Celtics in like the late aughts. And so that was my introduction to the movie, and I watched the movie like 6 years after listening to Cedric Maxwell just yell the name Jesus Shuttlesworth all the time. It's a really good movie. I have no complaints about this movie, and I think the behind-the-scenes stories about how that basketball scene went down only make it more and more interesting.
Yeah, pretty much the same as Lucas. This was sitting at 11, so I poured one out for everybody. This movie is so good. I do love this movie a lot, but
just had to make it.
I wanted to put something a little unconventional.
I've never seen it.
No. Watch it. It's fantastic.
I've just never been really a big basketball fan. It's not my sport.
Do you like Denzel?
You get upset. I do like Denzel, so I will check it out because I like Denzel.
You're fine. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, my number 5, a potentially controversial choice on this, but after rewatching it, my number 5 is Creed 2. Now, for a long time, Creed was my favorite boxing movie and favorite Rocky movie, but when I rewatched it last night, I just love the way that Victor's story sort of aligns with Adonis's in such a satisfying way. You see the story of Victor's redemption through his father in Russia. There's a whole storyline with his mother when she comes back, and the way that ends is like so heartbreaking. But I think the boxing scenes in this are phenomenal, and I just love the arc that Creed goes on more in this. I think he's got more to overcome, and it's a more interesting opponent. I think, again, Victor being the villain is way more interesting to me than Pretty Ricky Conlon in the first movie. So I think that this movie really coalesces a lot of the stuff that makes the series great. Michael B. Jordan is stellar and amazing in this movie. And it puts more of a spotlight on Tessa Thompson, which I really like. I think it gives her more to do in this movie. And just has more of a fullness, I think, that keeps me more engaged. I still love both the movies like a lot, and we'll talk about Creed when we get to it later. But when I revisited them, I watched them back to back. Creed 2 was more satisfying for me.
So I get the Creed comparison. Why it may rank lower on people's list than higher, because it's basically kind of the Rocky story, with Creed's life growing up, but it's still like he comes to fight out of the woodworks to fight the champion. It's an awesome movie, but Creed 2 is an interesting choice. I like Creed 2 a lot, but I do not like the redemption story of the Dragos. I don't. I think it's very rushed in this movie. I don't think it's like there's not a lot of setups besides like them turning their back on him, like leaving for him to grab the towel and finally realize that his son is, don't put his son in the same path that he went down, which is a nice story. I just feel like that character with the setup of the other ones is pretty much redeemable. But I get what they were going for, and it made sense. It was just like they didn't really tell that. I love everything leading up to that. I love Tessa Thompson having way more, Bianca more to do. I think their relationship, him trying to figure out like his life beyond getting pretty much destroyed in that first fight and not realizing like you can't take on the world, you're not indestructible, like kind of a Rocky 3, just challenging whoever runs their mouth. That's a tough one. I don't hate it. It's just I think I'm in the camp that Creed 1 is better than Creed 2, but that's fair. Anybody on Creed 2? Because everybody I think here had the first Creed on their list, so we haven't talked about it, but it's there. So why did the sequel miss your guys' list? Just curious.
I enjoyed Creed 1 more than I enjoyed Creed 2. I'm in that boat as well. I think it's a good movie. I just don't think it's for me. I kind of think it's not as fulfilling as Creed 1 was for me.
I kind of look at this, whenever I do like these lists, I always try and do like one per franchise, and for and even like Creed, that was kind of like a spinoff of Rocky. I like Creed 2 a lot. I think it's a good movie. I look at this more as like the unofficial Rocky 5. Like this is more of a sequel to Rocky 4 than it is to Creed. So in that way, like I like what they did expanding on the story with Adonis and like what Paul said, like going off of Tessa Thompson's character. I liked that they expanded more on that and made it a little bit better, but not enough to go over Creed 1. I think Creed 1 is just way more fleshed out and more better made, in my opinion.
So I love Creed 2, and I made a conscious choice to not put both Creeds on the list. Although if I went by just pure rankings, it definitely would be on the list. I agree with Paul. I love what they did with the Dragos. I love that mirroring there. And particularly a small detail, I love the fact that he wins the first fight by disqualification after getting beaten rather than actually getting beaten, so that they break the mold of the previous Rocky movies, do it a little bit different. It's very similar, but it's not exactly the same. He doesn't have to come back from a loss, but he has to come back from a win where he knows he got his ass beat.
Kind of like the Fury Wilder almost in a way.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, completely understand that. I would put Creed 2 on the list probably. I just wouldn't put higher than Creed 1. So what is your 4?
My number 4 is Hoop Dreams.
Yikes.
Okay.
Yeah, figures. Figures gonna ride a little higher. All right, so the next one would be. Go ahead.
My 6. My 6 is Rudy. I love this movie. It's the embodiment of a 100% true underdog story. Don't stop believing in your dreams. You can shake your hand all you want. He made it out on that field, did he or did he not? And he did what he had to do. And he was the only player to be carried off of Notre Dame's field like that. His dream got recognized. I think this movie is amazing. I mean, it's a movie. There's going to be dramatic stuff. You love Hamilton, right? That's not completely factual. Thank you. And I love Hamilton. Don't get me there, but there's always going to be facts that they mess up in the movies because they want to give them more dramatical feel. But I absolutely believe this movie is it's one of my favorite football movies. Just because I remember watching it the first time with my uncle. It has that feel, you get those feels when you go back and revisit these movies. I rewatched that movie. Excuse me. I rewatched that movie probably every 3 or 4 years just because I watched it around the time that my uncle passed away. So it's like it's that feel. So I think it was one of his favorite sports movies. So it became one of my favorite.
Rudy tells me a very important story. Not everyone can play. You may have a dream that you want to play. You can't. I'm sorry. Everybody has dreams. I want to.
Jim wins the night.
So yeah, the first time I watched this, I got those like, oh, this is a cool underdog story. But the more I watched, I'm just like, you shouldn't have been on the field. I'm sorry, you shouldn't have. I get that you're great and you do your work and blah blah. But it just seems it's cheesy for the sake of cheesy at times. Like everybody turned in their uniforms, their whole like put him in there. With you, he was offsides. Clearly they, so the play doesn't even count. No. So I don't know. It's not there for me. It doesn't. It's a lot more emotional, like to you. Like my dad showed me Rudy. He loved Rudy, and he was incorrect. So yeah. So I'm not a big Rudy fan. I don't believe, and it tells an important sports lesson. Not everybody can play the sport, even if you want to. So what do you guys think? No Rudy on your list. So and. Paul is doing a Chance impression right now. His Wi-Fi is starting to act up, so that's good. Called that one, didn't I?
Go ahead.
So go ahead, whoever.
I don't have anything to say. Jeff can go.
I like Rudy, but yeah, this movie, like they skimmed over a lot of stuff in this movie as far as what is real and what really happened. If this wasn't like on the basis of this is a real story, yes, this was a real person, but they definitely made up a lot. If this was just like here's a telling of a story that anybody can connect to, like an underdog, then yes, I think this would be a lot more better received. But the fact is, like, a lot of people have come forward and said, like, he wasn't really carried out. Like, Joe Montana, let's say, he's like, I played the same time he did. That didn't really happen unless I was drunk or something, But I like the movie, but it's not a top 10 in my eyes.
I love JTH's comment. Thank you, Jim, by the way. You just won the flipping night with your comment. We are at your 5.
My 5. My 5 is Radio. I think this is a great movie. It shows. I think this is a great movie. It shows you how compassionate a person can be to someone with a mental illness, and shows you that they can be a part of a team. I fell in love with this movie. I thought this movie was great. I think some of the things that happened in this movie were really rough to watch. And I think I don't know what else to say. This movie, to me, this movie shows that anybody can be a part of the team if they have the heart to be a part of the team. I think a lot of people, you're going to say that that's not, a real sports movie or this isn't really anything. But here's the thing. It happened in real life. This was a person that had mental disabilities that couldn't be a part of a team, but he made him a part of the coaching staff. He helped him graduate. That's things that, normal human beings get to do on the daily basis. We get to prove ourselves. And when I say normal, I mean people that don't have disabilities. You can cringe eat or whatever. I have a brother who has Asperger's, so I know. Sorry if it wasn't proper terming, but to me, it has the heart and soul of a sports movie.
Okay. It's like bringing a landmine into the field. I can't really say much without trying to be. I think the movie's fine. Cody,
can I help?
Movie?
I can help you for a second. I'd like to read you the Rotten Tomatoes critic consensus. The story is heavy on syrupy uplift and turns Radiu into a saint/cuddly pet.
Well, that's not a great way to look at that movie. So that's great that they say that.
Cool. I think what the overall thing was, it's kind of like it touches on a tough topic, but when it overall was sports, when I think of it, I don't want to go back and watch radio all the time. If I want to feel a good movie about that topic, I will gladly go visit it. It's just radio is just not at the top of my like go to, because like there are different sports movies that handle like the outside of the sports, like process, like coaching, stuff like that, and I think are cool. It's just not what I want in a sports movie. I don't think there's anything wrong with having it. I think it's way too high on the list. I think it would be like a nice 9 or 10 throw in there. But radio has just never been one of those that because like my wife works in the mental illness field all the time, and it's just never one that it's just like we go to. Really, I think Cuba Gooding Jr. does a fine job in the performance, and the movie is okay, but it's not my sports movie at all. What does everybody else think about radio?
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think you can have your heart in the right place and still not be a well-made movie, and I think that's what this is. I just think that it's overly sentimental in a way that doesn't necessarily affect emotionally. I think the way that it intends to clearly does for you, and that's awesome. But for me, this movie really misfires. I just think it feels a little caricature-y, and doesn't give sort of the fullness of being that I think that a person with Asperger's should have. So that's just how I feel about radio.
I would say like when you look into like the actual like person itself, like he's a very like beloved character and real person. He is somebody who is very much loved, and I love the spirit of the movie. I think Barr even said it in the comments. The spirit in this movie is really nice. Taking the real life aspects out of it and taking the mental illness side out of this, because that's I wish that upon nobody. When you look at it from a film standpoint and just looking at it as a film, I think it plays it a little too safe. I think it kind of like looks at like the sports movie check boxes and sees like, all right, we got to have like kind of this scene. We got to have kind of like this scene in a way. And it kind of plays it a little too safe. You could have something here that could be really, really good. I just wish they would have took a little bit more risks. But for what we got, I think it's fine. I think it's a good movie. And I think Cuba Gooding Jr. is good in the movie, So I enjoy radio, but it's not one that I'm going to be rewatching every single time. But I love the fact that Doug has a connection with it. So, I can respect that 150%.
I haven't seen the movie, honestly. Respect to Doug for he clearly has a real connection to it. So I'm not going to spend any time joking or anything.
Yeah,
you can do.
Fair. Go to your 4.
My 4 is Moneyball.
Yikes.
All right. So we are on to Lucas. No, has everybody went through it? No.
Yeah, we went through our 4s already. He's already.
Yeah. So Lucas,
right.
give us your number 3.
My number 3 is Warrior.
Yikes.
Okay.
We're not talking to you. Okay. Yeah, Jeff. What's your 3?
My number 3 is Hoop Dreams, which got yikes.
So how many people had Hoop Dreams on
That's
there?
my
3 of you? 3 of the 4?
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead. Just go around.
Okay.
All right. So cover it.
Okay. So Hoop Dreams, what originally started out as supposed to be a 30-minute documentary spanned into like 250 hours worth of material that spanned 5 years worth of filming. It created something that was bigger than basketball, and it explored the lives of these kids from just playing on the streets to trying to get into college. It creates a very beautiful narrative, and I love the fact that it explores them outside of the court itself. It explores, the social and the economic struggles that they have to face as well, and the stereotypes. It creates a very human experience, and I think something that anybody can connect to. And I feel like when you go back and watch this, yes, it's a bit of a long movie. This is borderline 3 hours. When you go back and rewatch it, I feel like you can connect to different people as you grow older yourself. And I think it's just a amazing documentary that needs to be watched by everybody. Absolutely recommend this 100%.
Whoever else. Lucas, you had it. So go ahead.
Paul had it higher than me. If he's still here.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I mean, everything Jeff said, I think it's just a really cool ability to watch two guys trying to accomplish a dream in real time over like a long span of time, just watching them each, struggles, tribulations, like the good moments, the bad moments. And there's moments during it where you're like, yeah, they're definitely going to become professional. And then there are moments where like, there's no way it's going to happen. And I think in some ways it's really interesting that you get to an ending. And like, I don't know, I was going to say spoilers, but like this movie is older than I am. So that's not really real anymore. I just think it's interesting. And I think almost in some ways it's more interesting that neither guy actually made it to the NBA, that this didn't turn out to be the next LeBron or wasn't the next Jordan. You've got like these two guys, and it's just this really human, wonderful story. So I just a really fantastic documentary.
Paul's not here. I'll just say my piece, and then when Paul comes in, I'll be able to say something. So Hoop Dreams was the one thing that when I first entered the community, I was on like a call for sports, I think, and I didn't see it at the time. And you're new, so you don't want to look like an ass and be like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I've never seen Hoop Dreams. So yeah, sure, it'll be on the list. But after watching it, it's one of those stories that, because some people ask me, can documentary count? I said, and my little response is, are you talking about Hoop Dreams? Because yes, you can include Hoop Dreams in the movie. There are other sports docs, and I would have allowed them. I didn't want the overfilled because we can do a sports doc later, like list. It's just, I think this is a fantastic story, and I'm with Lucas. If this would have turned out to be like both of them make into the NBA, I think the story has totally it doesn't mean as much. Like how you cling to something, you find some hope or some dream into something wanting to do, and you devote your time for it. And sometimes they don't always pay out. I think it's a really, really beautiful story. And you're right, it's a 3 hour, but it really does fly by. I think it's a really good story to go out and check out. So real quick, Doug, before Paul gets here, Koho, Paul seems to be back if you are around. Okay,
yeah.
Hoop Dreams.
Just real quick, I'm sure people covered most of it, but I think the evolution of the story I think is what makes this such an amazing achievement. Just to real quick, got on my Oscar soapbox. This was not nominated for Best Documentary Feature in 1994. The fact that it wasn't even nominated for documentary, when I think it's arguable it should have even been nominated for Best Picture. I think this is one of the most important documentaries that have ever been put out. Steve James, this is such an incredible achievement. It's just like emotionally moving, but weirdly rewatchable in a way. And just heartbreaking and beautiful, and just such a love letter to basketball as well at the same time. I think it is the quintessential basketball movie in that way. So, yeah.
Doug, didn't have it. Have you seen it?
Have not seen it.
Okay. I would definitely check it out. It's one that I entered the community and did not see, and I am very happy I did see it. So we're going Paul.
My number 3 is one of my favorite movies, period. Everybody Wants Some. This, to me, is the most realistic portrayal of a sports team that I've ever seen in a movie. I think the dynamic between all of the players, the way they interact, all the pranks they play on each other, the way they are when they're hanging out is just so note perfect. Tyler Hoechlin as like the star player is like, if anyone has played on a baseball team, that's like what a star player acts like. He's like kind of part of the team, but kind of doing his own thing. He's got a little more charisma than everyone and is like a little aloof at the same time. But I just think this is an amazingly entertaining, incredible movie that is about the sport and about the fact of being on a team. The reason I'm confused on my list, even though that's arguably a sports movie, is because that movie's not really about the sport. That movie just has athletes in it. And I think that Everybody Wants Some is just a better distillation of what the sports atmosphere is about and what athletes are like. So,
yeah. So I am so
came through.
I am so yes, I got all of it. I'm so happy that you put those on your list because you put it on a couple lists a few times. I haven't been able to see it. This movie is directly made for me after watching it. I absolutely love this movie. There was, I think it was like a total of probably 20 minutes in, and I was like, yeah, I'm just going to buy this one because I already know where it's going to go, and already on board 100%. It's baseball. It is 100% the high school typical like college baseball team. And this is one of those stories that I described as where we talked about it is the is when it depicts like a farther away from the sport, right? There's no traditional games. Like it doesn't go through all that stuff. It's just like how the team interacts with each other. And I think it's one of the perfect depiction like of a baseball team and how this group functions. And as somebody that's not the biggest Dazed and Confused fan, I'm not saying like it's bad. Like I would never say that. I think it's a good movie. I love this movie even more than that. So Everybody Wants Some is, when I was seeing it, I was like, maybe it's a little too high because it doesn't really do sports. But at the end of the day, it didn't need to because it depicted what the sport was. They didn't have to play a full game to make me like it. So fully thank Paul again for suggesting another great movie for me to watch, and I watched it, and I absolutely loved it. Lucas, Doug, and Jeff, know Everybody Wants Some. Why not? Have you not seen it? If you haven't, I have it on my Vudu. You can gladly have it and watch it. It's fantastic.
I've seen bits and parts of this. I haven't seen the whole movie.
Okay, so I did see it, but I saw it, and then I saw Dazed, and I saw it the first time, and I thought it was just okay, and then I saw Dazed and Confused after it, and really loved Dazed and Confused. So this is probably a movie I really deserves a rewatch. So I won't give a lot of thoughts right now because I think my opinion is kind of outdated and could use a refresh.
Same boat, like I saw this once and I liked it at the time. I know Paul talks highly of it all the time, and I know a lot of people do talk about this a lot. I just need to give it another rewatch. I think I need to give it a deeper look because I do like Dazed Confused a lot, and I think everybody says it's like the spiritual successor to it.
And to Scully's comment, there's more background then, and we haven't talked about the movie, but so is Moneyball, and it still counts. So, let's hold the phone. I still think that it shows the depiction of a team and where they go throughout their whole struggles. It's pretty much travel days or off days or whatever. So it's 100% a sports movie. So we're going to Doug's 3.
My number 3 is Remember the Titans.
Yikes.
Okay. All right. Somebody came to put me in my good side. That's pretty good. So let's go to Lucas. Lucas, what's your 2?
My number 2 is the best boxing movie, the best movie in a long-running franchise. It's Creed.
Yikes.
I think we've yiked. It's
Yep.
still yikes?
Yeah. Well, I had it lower. I had it at 8.
You had a date? Anyone else have it?
So it's final. I think you had it the highest spot possible.
Okay. So I watched all the Rocky movies and was like, these are good, but I don't think Rocky is necessarily the best character in his own movies a lot. And so when I think they got to Creed, they finally gave the lead character, our hero, the most interesting character, made him the most interesting character in his own movie. I think it has by far the best boxing sequences in any of the movies. I think the boxing is slicker. That one-take fight against Leo the Lion Sparino is the best boxing sequence on film, period. Nothing is better than it. I love the final fight with Conlon. I love him getting knocked out, seeing his dad, and then coming back. I love fucking... The best character in the Rocky OG is his dad. Let's be real. It's Apollo Creed is the best character from the original Rockies. So it's not surprising that Adonis would be the best character. Michael B. Jordan is awesome. I love these movies.
You guys all had it on your list, so keep talking about it.
Yeah, I guess I'll go. I had it at 8. When this movie was announced, this is one of those when you heard the plot of how they were going to proceed with this story, everybody kind of gave the congressional eye roll, really, we're going this route. It's kind of one of those. It's you got to have a good reason to kind of do it this way. But Ryan Coogler made this movie so well and so well directed that you just were like, okay, this is definitely its own thing. It exists in the realm of Rocky, but this is Creed. This, I love Michael B. Jordan in this. I loved the fact that how they used Sylvester Stallone. They didn't have him be like this like mythological being in a way. Like they kind of made it more grounded, realistic with him. And I still think one of my favorite lines from this movie, being that I'm from Pennsylvania and close to Philly, there's something about Philly fighters. Maybe it's the water, but they're tougher. And anybody who has been to Philly, yes, the water is shitty there. There's something about it there. Shout out to Philly. But yeah, I love
Paul, talk really fast while you're still allowing you to be.
Creed is my number 8. I love Creed. I think Creed is a more interesting character than Rocky because I think his struggle of also being in the shadow of his father, in addition to dealing with being black in boxing, I think those elements are more satisfying as a character than Rocky. Just real quick, my favorite scene in this movie, I think, might be the training sequence where Meek Mill's Lord Knows starts playing and he's running with the motorcycles. Like I just get so excited and amped up when that scene happens. It's like one of my truly like favorite like sort of montage music scenes in recent memory. I mean Creed's amazing. The one take boxing scene is amazing. That's like incredible filmmaking, and like this is probably more well directed than Creed 2. I prefer Creed 2 a little bit, but Creed is an amazing movie. I still remember seeing it in the theater. It's just such an amazing audience experience as well. So yeah, I love Creed.
I think it's another Coogler, Michael B. Jordan kind of like hit. Them working together is perfect. For me, this movie, the boxing is amazing, but I love all the subtle scenes. All the scenes where it's pure heart and emotion. Him and Tessa Thompson's chemistry together. Him and Sylvester Stallone's chemistry together is amazing in this movie. And it just fuels the fights because that he wants to prove that he's more than just his father's son. And I just really enjoy this movie a lot.
Zach Ford's comment right now. Oh my god. That's the
So I'm a huge Rocky fan. I love every one of them except 1 1/2 of them, pretty much. I don't like parts of Balboa, but I think Creed is. Lucas hit the nail on the head. Finally, they took the character with the most and gave him the most to do. And it's one of those things that just is perfect throughout. It's when I saw it, I was just like, "What are you doing? Can you just let this die? Like, why are we doing this?" And then at first, I just saw the beginning, and then at the end of the trailer, I was like, "When the hell does this movie come out?" Because I won't be there to watch it. Because hands down, I think it's an interesting story. Again, that's why I like Creed 1 and Creed 2. I think they're literally what made Rocky better. It's not those hour and 30-minute just get knocked down, well, back up again. It was, you actually saw struggle through this one. So Creed should have made this list. I'm happy that it's on everybody's list. And you asked me a year ago, I said Creed 2. Can you calm down? But honestly, the more I watch it, I couldn't agree more. It's fine to be up there. All right, so we are at Jeff's 2.
My 2. All right, so my number 2, we're going to go Gavin O'Connor, probably his best sports film, and that's Warrior.
Way back. Oh, damn.
Somebody had this higher. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder where it is on Doug's list. My number 2 is a yikes from earlier. I think it might be a yikes again. I'm not sure, but it's Moneyball.
I had this earlier.
I also had it earlier.
I had it earlier.
Okay.
I'm talking about it. Everybody go around and then I'll cover everything.
Moneyball, again, one thing I love about sports movies is when they really get the sport and what the sport means to different people. And I think this movie has all these different people who are at different levels of the organization, and you see what their relationship to baseball is. You see David Justice and the way that he's sort of this aging star. There's a little bit of Barry Zito erasure in this movie, and that's fine. But I think how gripping it is, despite, again, such simplistic material, is amazing. My favorite part of this movie, though, is the storyline with Billy Beane and his daughter. And I think that relationship is what makes this movie elevated another level. The scene at the end where she sings the tape to him in the car is one of the instant cry moments in any movie for me. That's such an extraordinary ending culmination of this whole thing. But just when you see Billy Beane, the way he was, his previous relationship to baseball, and how that sort of shaped the way he looks at baseball now. The trade deadline sequence, I think that from top to bottom, it's so well designed and crafted, and every single actor is doing such great work. Even the smallest bit roles, Spike Jonze is like the new stepdad. It's like all these little things just coalesce together to make such a satisfying and an incredible and a very thoughtful sports movie that knows what sports are really about to people.
Lucas.
So it was my 5. I'm not going to try to talk about the whole movie because I think Paul just did it really well. There's a couple of scenes I really love in this. I love the scouting scene where they talk about how the baseball player has an ugly girlfriend, and that means he doesn't have confidence in himself. And I love this clash between, like, here's a bunch of statistics that tell you this player will be good versus, like, his girlfriend's ugly. He'll never be able to hit in the majors. And then the scene where Ron Washington goes with, it's Art Howe, right? Is the manager?
Yeah, Art Howe.
Art Howe to see Chris Hatterberg. And Art Howe asks Ron Washington to tell Chris Hatterberg how hard it is to play first base, and seemingly thinking that Ron's going to help him. And he goes, it's incredibly hard. Which is a quote I have quoted 100 times in this movie.
It's easy. It's easy. It's incredibly hard.
It's a great movie. It's a really, really, really good movie.
Go, Jeff.
I was gonna say I had this at 7. Fantasy baseball, the movie. I'll say, but this is when you look at this on paper, you should be like, I should be bored out of my mind with this movie. This should, a movie where you talk a lot about statistics and the front office dealings and the actual behind the scenes work. This should be boring out of like anybody's mind. But it's written so well that you just are instantly hooked in, and you just want to continue seeing the relationship between general manager and teams and scouting and just how the dynamic works out. And one of my favorite scenes is after the loss, and then like they're like in the clubhouse dancing and playing music, and he comes in and turns the music up. He goes, "You hear that? That's what losing sounds like."
Jeremy
that. Yeah.
Old fat himself.
Doug, what's your takes on Moneyball?
I love this movie. I think this was an incredible take of how the sport changed. I think it's one of my favorite scenes is when Bean's going and talk to Art. Oh, he's not starting tonight. He got traded. It's just like you see Philip Seymour Hoffman just feel completely destroyed, and like he's never gonna win no matter what he does to play up against Billy, and you see it in his face. This movie is one of my favorite baseball movies of all time. I think it just shows you, we don't focus on the actual playing of the game like you do in most baseball movies, but I think this shows you the heart and soul of what an actual baseball organization is.
So I'll save the spiel that I give every year. This movie is very misleading. There's a huge misstep that no one ever talks about on this team, and it drives me crazy as a sports fan. They had 3 fucking aces on their team. That's why they won 20 games in a row.
Tejada too.
And they had Tejada. Nothing about Tejada, just Hatterberg. No, but Doug mentioned it briefly, but it's literally that scene with Philip Seymour. I want Hatterberg at first. No, I'm starting him. No, you're not. Why? Because he's playing for Tampa. Like, what? Like, so then I'll start him. Nope. Traded him too. It's like, you freaking idiot. I get what I want. There is something about sports. This is being so real. And this one movie hits a little closer home because how close Bean was to the Red Sox, and thank kind of God that he wasn't, because the next year we won a championship. So I appreciate you staying the hell away from Beantown because you still don't have a championship, Bean. Yeah, I absolutely love this movie. I think it tells a story of just like when he's
Ricardo Rincon, the story of Ricardo Rincon, man. It's what the movie's all about.
We shouldn't have to pay for drinks. Like those entire like setup of just little things and thing. But when he sits down, he goes, this, and this. What, we can't replace this. This is irreplaceable. So what do we do from here to change it? And it's just like, it takes baseball and flips on your head and shows the scouting how wrong they were. And like, they look at all these players like, how you need to get on base. So it just takes the analytics of baseball, which is now changed the entire game, which is fantastic. So up until trash cans. So it's a great time. So we're gonna go to number one. Oh no, Doug, you're two. What's your
to continue off of what Jeff said, do you believe in miracles? Miracles is my number two.
I thought you meant the Silver Shamrocks winning the title. Sorry.
Do you believe in miracles?
Go ahead, Doug.
One of the best calls ever.
Dreams. No, this is one of my favorite hockey movies of all time. This movie is incredible. The performances in this movie, what they got out of their players and what he did to, kind of inspire America. Like, we were in a really, really rough spot when the 1980 Olympics were coming around. We were in a place where not many people want to be. They were doing gas regulations. We were in a real problem as a country. And us, doing what we did, them doing what they did, it kind of it sparked our country into being, going for something further. And I think this movie depicts it perfectly. I think this movie depicts the reality of the situation. What they did, they took college. They didn't take pros to the Olympics. They took college kids and people that were just getting out of college and took them against one of the toughest hockey teams ever to skate the ice. And they won. This movie is incredible. If you watch this movie and you don't jump with joy, even if you know the ending, I don't know what's wrong with you, because this it makes you feel nothing. I think Thomas cracked it on the head. Miracle cures depression, because you get instantaneously happy when they score. If you don't, that's fine. I get it. But at the same time, I think this movie, when I first watched it, was great.
All right, so me. Being that I work, for a hockey team, I think I'm required by law to like this movie, but that doesn't change the fact, because this movie is flat out amazing. What I love with the movie is the little nuances. This has probably the greatest speeches you could ever look for in the movie. Everywhere you look has some sort of motivation for something that you have. Legs feed the wolf, or the name on the front is a lot more important than the name on the back. One of my favorites, though, is definitely in the beginning. I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones. That just tells you right there. It's we're not looking for, they're looking for a Moneyball, essentially, like that. This was Moneyball before Moneyball was Moneyball. They're looking for the best chemistry. They experimented a lot. They couldn't understand plays. And by the end, you just see it all mesh so well together that you see one of the most well-conditioned teams. That drill that they ran, going from red line to blue line and back and trying to do it as quick as you can. That was how they knew they had to beat the Russians. That was how you knew you had to beat a team like this. And at the end, and at the third period, right before they did the face-off, and you just hear the crowd, and then he just stops and he goes, "Listen to them." You just have goosebumps at that point there. And just leading up to the final minute, you can the fact that you feel tension for a moment that you already know the outcome of is that's good filmmaking. When you can feel tension for something like that, that's when you know you got something good. I love Miracle beyond all belief. This movie's so good.
Did you guys have Miracle? Either one of you? Okay. So yeah. This doesn't have Charlie Conway in it, so the wrong Disney one.
Quack.
I don't like hockey. So that's one of my biggest downfalls in watching it. I just don't enjoy it. I think it tells a lot about a sport that went on strike for 2 years, and the owners had to bring it back because they were losing money. No one else was clamoring over it that bad. So I think it's fine. I think it's one of those stories that the Olympic moment, you hear about it. It's one of those cool things. It's just not my type of movie. So I think it's good, especially if you like hockey. I can completely understand what that feeling and the feeling that you get when you're watching it is, it's a good sports film, but I don't need to go back and watch Miracle. I kind of know what happened. And once that moment happens, it doesn't do the same level. Lucas Paul, no Miracle. Why do you hate America?
I actually prefer Of Miracles in Men, which is the 30 for 30 that tells the story from the Russian point of view on this story, which is really interesting. I think this is a movie with great moments, but I don't think that overall it necessarily holds water in the same way that I want it to. And besides Kurt Russell, I just don't find a lot about this movie engaging. His speech is great, but yeah, for me, this is not my favorite. It's a good, solid movie. Like I definitely am not denigrating anyone for having it on the list, but for me, just not my favorite Gavin O'Connor sports movie either. Which apparently it's not Doug's either. I think his number 1 and 2 are both wild. Anyway, go ahead, Lucas.
I mean, I think we need to talk about depression treatment for a second and just discuss how depression is a complicated mental condition that requires sometimes medication or therapy. And I would not condone anyone watching the film Miracle as an attempt to cure depressive episodes. So please don't listen to Doug. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Please don't do that. I'll be honest, I haven't seen Miracle, and honestly, I don't give a fuck about hockey, so, like, it's not a movie that's really high on my list of, like, things I need to watch. Yeah, here you go.
Well, you might want to start doing it. The rest of your sports are not looking so hot right now, buddy.
Hockey has a legitimate chance to come back.
I don't
I'm
care.
saying Boston sports, anyway.
Go Revolution. Go Revolution.
Okay. So who was that? Whose 2 was that?
That was Doug. So it's Lucas's number 1, I think.
Lucas, what's your 1?
All right, my number 1 is, of course, a baseball movie, because what else would it be? Thank you. What I don't know what Paul's doing when he just randomly making gestures. 8 Men Out, baby. 8 Men Out. I just rewatched this movie literally like an hour ago, right before this started. It's fantastic. It has every character actor you could ever want. It has one of the most interesting stories in baseball history. It is a crying shame that they banned Shoeless Joe Jackson from playing baseball. The man clearly wasn't trying to throw the World Series. He had one of the all-time great World Series. It's a truly amazing movie. It's shot wonderfully. I love the score. I think John Sayles is like a truly unsung and brilliant director and a really good screenwriter. This is a fantastic movie, and I'm shocked that nobody else had it.
Yeah, this is the one I was talking about with the Black Sox scandal. I think it's the best movie to depict that. I think this movie is amazing from start to finish. It's one of my I like comedy baseball a little bit more, but like this one is, when I think about it, is one of my favorite movies, baseball movies, sports movies of all time. When I saw Lucas put it at number 1, I was like, This is the man that gets me, and I don't think we've ever discussed it. I just think this movie, it's one of my feel good, just turn on sports movies. I think it depicts that scandal, and I'm 100% right. Baseball doesn't always hand out punishment the best. Let's be real. So this just shows the time. I think Field of Dreams gets like way hyped for this like reason, but it's no. I think 8 Men Out is the better version of this movie. Scully, you don't do anything for me, so that's fine. 8 Men Out. Have you guys seen it? I think Paul probably has seen it, but have you not seen it? If you have, why do you hate baseball?
Paul?
I've seen it. I like it quite a bit. Not my favorite movie by John Sayles. Not my favorite baseball movie. I do think it's an interesting story, and I like most of it. I don't love all of the supporting work. I really love David Strathairn though in this movie. I think he's amazing in this movie. One of my favorite like low-key character actors. But I don't know. There's something about this movie that just keeps it a step below really connecting. It's like an interesting enough story, but the Black Sox thing I've never been at like. I don't know. I've never seen it in a way that really is truly satisfying to me. We know Bart. I thought that was pretty obvious what he was alluding to. He made the trash can joke earlier. But no, I mean it's good and well made. It's probably like sitting in the mid to low teens on my list. Just doesn't quite hit me in the same way that some of these other movies do.
I love this. The story behind this is very fascinating. It's a very interesting story to look into. The movie is good. I do like this movie a lot. I put this in when I was making my list, this was on there. I had this, and I was contemplating between Bang the Drum Slowly as well. I think that's a very underrated one as well. I wouldn't put it in top 10, but I do like this movie a lot. Yeah, Bang the Drum. Yes, the joke.
Cody, you're going too fast. You gotta.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I like this movie a lot. Though. It's good.
Hey, cut that out. I'm out too. I can't. I don't like that. Stop.
Don't rip my jersey, bro. Don't rip my jersey.
He's modest, guys. He's really modest.
Has Doug seen this movie?
Doug has not seen this movie.
Boo!
Watch it.
Watch it for free on 4 different sites.
You give me one of them, I will watch it.
F movies, Put Locker. I'm just kidding.
No, it's literally Pluto TV has it for free. Voodoo Free has it right now. You can go watch it on either place.
All right, I'll go check it out.
Okay.
El Jefe.
We are going Jeff.
All right, now that my kid has left the frame, we are good to go. All right,
Tell us what this terrible movie you decided to put it in number 1.
Everybody join me. Everybody loves this song. Come on.
No, I'm not.
Everywhere we go, people want to know. Come on. Remember the Titans, guys.
Oh, wow.
So, what I love about this movie, more than anything, was that this proved that there's more to football than just the game. The fact that this movie goes beyond the game and touches upon racial tension during a very difficult time in American history and shines a light on it that is not cartoonizing it, but making it relatable to audiences that are younger. Hence why Disney made this movie. I love just seeing the progression of people understanding each other, loving each other, and knowing that this goes beyond football. This is one of those where the relationship is just I love seeing it more and more. With Julius and Gary, seeing them hate each other to now loving each other, and the hospital scene, where he looks at him, he says, "That's my brother right there. Don't you see the resemblance?" That just shows you right there that anybody can overcome their own prejudices and can make it so beautiful. I do love it. Oof.
F.
Jesus.
But
right.
I love
Shut up, Parker.
Maybe Robert just likes FM 98.1 or something like that.
Hey, Koho, you know what to do.
Press the button. But remember, this is
Put the spider Put Shelob out of his misery. Go ahead.
But to summarize, I love when a sports movie can go above the game and can touch upon outside issues and can make it be more than just the game. This touches on friendships, relationships. I love Remember the Titans. If you don't remember them, why?
You do now.
You do now.
Who did Doug have this? He had this higher than I did, I think, right?
I had it at 3.
I had it 4.
Sunshine. Sunshine. I'm sorry. No, this movie is incredible. The scene at Gettysburg still gets to me to this day, where where Boone talks about everything that happened on the field, and if you can't get over this, what chances do we have? Even the comedy in this is great. The Jerry Lewis scene. Who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? I just, for me, this movie, I remember watching it the first time in middle school, I think it was in middle school. And my teacher put it on and I didn't think I was going to be interested at all in it. And I was I fell in love with it. I was like, Mom, we're going to the video store back when there was video stores. We rented it and it never got returned. But no, I think this movie is probably my favorite football movie of all time.
What is your number 3? And there were no football movies above it. So
that's true. That is true. Just some of the lines in this movie as well, I think, are phenomenal. The remember this is the night that they'll remember that they played the Titans. Don't let them move another inch. I don't care if you get flagged all night. It's one of my favorite movies.
It's Blitz all night. Don't get the quote wrong, or I'll come at you. Lucas is next.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a really, really, really good movie. Basically, Denzel Washington, the movie, where he just is Denzel for every single second he's on screen. He's like, I'm going to yell at people, and I'm going to demand people do things, and I'm going to humiliate them, and I'm going to make fun of them, and I'm just going to be Denzel. And it's awesome. It's a really, really good movie.
Yeah, this is a movie full of stuff that shouldn't work, but does. There's a lot of tropes in here that I usually don't. I don't like the overly smart daughter trope where the daughter for some reason knows too much, but for some reason I find Hayden Panettiere's character really entertaining. A lot of the stuff is really hokey and could be corny, but I think it just delivers somehow. I will say one problem I have is when the line Doug talked about, the night they remember the Titans, just say the title. Just say they'll remember the Titans. It's cleaner. It's easier. It would have been way more memorable if you didn't say, remember the night that they thought that they knew that they played on the same field as the Titans. Just say the title. That's all I have to say about that.
He said the title.
So, yeah, this movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's so rewatchable. It's the first thing I watched on Disney+. Yost is a total liar because they clearly crossed the line of scrimmage, and he did not take every last one of them out. That was always one of my biggest problems with that part. That speech is my favorite sports speech in any movie ever, just because just how he delivers it. Gosling, who put it last week? I think it was last week that Gosling was a liability.
He's a liability.
Tax. God, just start screaming at him. It's fantastic. Just overall, I think this movie tells a great message. And it is Denzel just pretty much insulting them. I always love the scene where they're doing up downs, and he's like, "I would like some water." You want some water? Oh, that's nice. Well, we will go until Blue is no longer thirsty or tired. And then Yost is like, "There's a line, and you're playing with it." And he blows the whistle, just stared at him. It's like I've played for football coaches. I've played for football coaches exactly like that, man. And I'm telling you, and he's like, the only time you get mud on my, if you get blood on it, you do not bleed on my uniforms, through and through. And I also love the scene when Denzel's walking across the thing and he turns back and throws the banana at him and just there you go, buddy. Still one of the best clutch lines in anything. So, this movie, and the fact that Disney put it out too was always a weird thing when I was growing up like this, that they tackled that such a thing, but they tackled it really well. They didn't steer away from it too much, which they could have went a little harder into it, but they still went a direction that most people wouldn't. So, Remember the Titans is probably one of my favorite sports movies of all time. Okay, we're going Paul. One.
Yeah, my number one. I'm afraid that people might not have seen this movie, but it is truly one of my favorite movies of all time. It is deeply personal in a lot of ways. The film is Breaking Away. Now, this is a movie from 1979. It's about a group of young men in Bloomington, Indiana, who decide to enter a cycling race called the Little 500. It's got Dennis Quaid, Jackie Earle Haley, Dennis Christopher, and Daniel Stern. Very early performances from all of those men. And it's extraordinary just how moving this movie still is to me. For clarity's sake, I went to Indiana University. This takes place there. I have a lot of deep personal connection to both the locations and all the places that they're at and the race itself. But I just think this is such an amazing coming of age sports story. The race scene at the end is extraordinary. And I would highly encourage anyone to see this movie. It's about these four young men who are total outcasts, and they find meaning in each other and in themselves. And they find a purpose for all their lives. There's great comedic plots all throughout. One of the characters is pretending to be Italian, even at his own house, which pisses off his dad all the time. That's hilarious. But all the characters are so unique and identifiable. The chemistry is amazing. And the filmmaking is just so strong. This is just such an amazing, fantastic movie about the spirit of the underdog in sports. It's just, fantastic. Please watch this movie if you haven't.
Yes. So with nothing's going on in the world right now, so life is pretty easy. Like, I have a lot of free time, so I could have chose to watch this, but I watched Everybody Wants Some because you put it on more lists in the past. So I went with that one instead of this one. I really want to see this movie. I haven't been able to. By the way, Parker, you're walking a thin line again with your comment. I'm telling you right now, you will go somewhere. I don't think it's a bad movie, but stop. Has anybody else seen this movie?
No.
Oh,
No,
man,
no, but I was just reading the synopsis. It sounds very good.
Yeah, it sounded fantastic.
so good.
But I was like, I literally watched the trailer for Everybody Wants Some, and I was like, instantly, I have to see this movie. And then the first 20 minutes I just watched. That's what I chose to watch. So I definitely want to see it. I will watch it because so far you haven't steered me wrong with any of your choices that you made me watch. So, would I enjoy this movie?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I definitely think that I would love it more than you guys just because it's just crazy seeing these places 40 years ago. They still look the same today. Like, and there's more behind it. But, yeah, it's just an incredible, moving, fantastic movie.
He normally tells me what's a Cody movie and what's not a Cody movie, so I appreciate that. So we'll move on because no one's seen it. Doug, close it out. What's your one?
Our number one is Warrior. I absolutely love this movie. I used to do mixed martial arts and stuff like that. I used to wrestle all throughout high school. So like that's why you'll notice like a lot of like fighting movies and like movies like that are like my go-to, sports movies. But I think this movie has one of the best depiction of a broken family. How me and my cousins would handle things. We'd fight. Literally, we'd fight. And literally we throw on gloves and we fight and then we make up. This movie, the ending where he doesn't give up and he breaks his arm and he still fights. If that's not proven heart, I don't know what is. I think Tom Hardy in this movie is amazing. Joel Edgerton in this movie is amazing. And it's again an underdog story about an underdog rising up.
Okay, so I had this at 2. Did anybody else have it at 2 or anything?
I had it at 3.
Okay, so I have a personal story with this movie then, which I'll get to in a bit, but I want to talk about one of my favorite lines from this movie comes, and I use it as motivation pretty much for anything, where he's like, if you want, I will throw this fight. We'll go home. We don't have to worry about this. You don't knock him out, you lose the fight. You don't knock him out, you don't have a home. That hits right here. That just is one of those like beautiful delivered lines. But my personal story with this movie. So this movie came out like 2012. I remember it was like Christmas time. Right around that time, my dad had a heart attack around the time, and pretty much it was like it didn't look good. Nothing seemed to like go right from that. But he was able to recover. He was able to come home. He came home actually Christmas Eve, and he and I watched this movie then when we got home because we talked about wanting to watch this then. So just like the overall relationship, showing this movie with the father-son relationship, he and I just sat there and we just bawled our eyes out. It was a very beautiful moment because we don't have a bad relationship. My dad and I are very, very close, and I love the relationship that we have. But just seeing, the movie of that, the weight of everything going on, it hit us, and it was a very beautiful moment in my life, and I will never forget it. But so this movie has a really special place in my heart. I love the inspiration behind it. I love the story.
And you have it, Lucas?
Yes. So this movie actually got me into MMA as I became a fan. So I watched this and I was like, oh, I got to watch MMA. So then since then, I've watched every single UFC card, UFC 206 to now. The only reason it's not higher on my list is because I think the more MMA you watch, it is a little bit inaccurate. Some of those fights, it's supposed to be a middleweight tournament. Brendan looks like he's a 170-pounder. Tommy looks like he's a 185er. Koba looks like he's like
250.
240 or 250. Like, he's a completely different weight class. And then, like, you can't poleaxe somebody in an MMA fight and win. That's not realistic. So, like, it's a really good movie, but there's a couple small details that, like, start to point out the more MMA you watch than me that knocks the movie just a little bit. But still a really, really good movie.
Did you have this on your list, Paul?
No, I did not. I'll say why in a second.
Yeah. I'm with Lucas. Boston sports and MMA is what me and Lucas bond over. With you on that. There's just like too much. I think this is famously why Sandy thinks that the two-time champion was Kurt Angle instead of Daniel Cormier in our sports match because of this movie. So I like this movie a lot. It's just the same thing. Like, I love MMA. Like, any fight that is on, I will literally tune in to watch it. I think I just think the problem would be is there's some inaccurates that I'm just like, that takes me away because they would have stopped that and that wouldn't have happened. So there's different things, but that's just nitpicky. But like that, it's all about rules and regulations that they normally do, and they just throw it out the window for the cool of the event. And I think it's cool. I think it's a great movie. I would have put it on my list. It just can't be my number one. It can't be. Paul.
Yeah, real quick. I just don't really have a big relationship to this movie. I saw it for the first time like 2.5 months ago, and I really, really liked it. But I think for me, when I was making the list, there was sort of two echelons. The top 6 was really locked in, and then the bottom sort of 4 spots were really malleable. As Cody knows, I change my mind frequently on the bottom of my list, especially. But this was just, I don't know. Plus, I knew other people were going to talk about it. I wanted to give a little bit of shine to a little bit of different kind of sports movie. This is phenomenal. I found myself like, I was watching it in my living room, and I was like getting up and cheering for Brendan when he was winning his fights. And it's really, again, it's deeply satisfying. I love its look at alcoholism. It's definitely my favorite Gavin O'Connor sports movie. But for me, it just I don't quite have the relationship to it quite yet. I think if I see it more times, that maybe it would be on a future list of similar ilk. But I just think as of now, it's not one that I connect to in the same ways as other ones, just because it's so new to me.
All right, guys. So we've made it. We're at the finals. So here's your top 10 list put together by you guys. So at number 10, Koho's ready. I'm hoping he's ready. He's asleep. He is definitely asleep on the camera. There we go. And there's still a thing. All right, so your number 10 is Everybody Wants Some. 9, The Fighter. 8, Breaking Away. 7 is 8 Men Out. 6 is Miracle. 5 is Creed. 4 is Hoop Dreams. 3 is Remember the Titans. 2 is Warrior. And 1 is Moneyball. So to break down individual scores for everybody, the highest score ever given on the show is going to Lucas Schildbach. I had 0 problems with the entire list. It is an A+ for me. I think this is they may have been in different orders at times, but I think overall the list is something that you like perfectly. And the only one that could have maybe is Ford v Ferrari because it's new, but I like that you showed a movie that was recent, and still I enjoyed it and I've watched it numerous times. So A+. Second goes to Paul Oyama. He gets an A-. Number 1 I haven't seen, can't really give anything, and then I also did not see his 7. So, but everything else I respect. I put it on there. I enjoyed it. Showed me one of my new favorite movies is Everybody Wants Some, so I appreciated that. Third place goes to Jeff Varju. Jeff gets a B+. It's really close. There's just a little ones like Friday Night Lights is one I wouldn't have put. Field of Dreams, League of Their Own, so good but not high. But you put Remember the Titans at the highest part, so that definitely helped you. And Doug didn't do a bad job at all, but C+. There's just issue like Rudy. I'm not going to tie behind. Radio, I'm not going to sit behind. Miracle's a little too high. Fighting with My Family, I think, was just a misstep. But C+, still a quality thing. I think Warriors are a fantastic movie. So, and Remember the Titans was in 3. So overall, not a bad list. I actually really enjoyed this show a lot. We have upcoming episodes. Koho's going to hit me with them right now. Next is Disney animated movies. We were going to be gone. We are going to be live because my trip got canceled. Yeah, it's a sad day. We will be so Disney animated movies. If you want to be on that panel, it will be live next week to break that down. I'm looking for very different lists. Okay, then April 1st, we're doing best superhero movies. So, what is your the overall best superhero movies? Please be on the list and fight that out because that's going to be a lot of fun. Then we got best ensemble movies. Again, if you do not know what the definition of that is, do not send me your list because The Lighthouse isn't an ensemble movie, guys.
8 Men Out.
Throw it out there.
8 Men Out.
It's good.
So that panel gonna have like 10 people on it, so it's like an ensemble panel.
Oh no! I'm gonna actually team everybody up before they go, and they got to combine their list together. It's gonna
Oh
be
man,
like a massacre. And then we're doing overrated 80s. I think that's probably the one that I've saved for the longest time because I think it's going to be the most contested because of the movies. There are a lot to choose from.
are you still hosting that one, or is that gonna be someone else?
Up in the air. We'll see.
That's not 80s. That's 2009. I'm just kidding.
I will definitely have a hand in picking the panelist for that episode, but I may put somebody else in the seat, like a Kirk or a Brian or somebody that grew up with those movies a little bit closer to home than me. And then we're doing space movies, no Star Trek, no Star Wars, just movies that deal with space. So I think that will be fun. And war movies, closing out with war movies. So great topics coming up. Again, if you do not send me a list, you cannot get on. And if you send me a list, that doesn't guarantee you a spot because I have to have the diverse list and personalities that make the show actually work because I've invited some people on that didn't have the best time. And I try to avoid that as best you got to have a test show. If you can handle it, then you can come back. So just send me a list. Have a great night and see you next week.
Well, I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown. I amuse you.
Eat shit. How's that? Eat shit. Eat shit. Eat shit.
Smug smile.
Definitely eat shit.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
You can't handle the truth!